What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another episode of the Ancestry Anthology. Haven't done one of these in a while. Let's talk today about the Azarketi. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, ding the bell, stay caught up on all your stuff. Now, let's dive in. So, the Azarketi, or as you might know them, the Gilman, from previous editions of Pathfinder, are a race of aquatic humanoids who were mutated into aquatic serpents by those space fish that live under the sea in return for the ability to breathe underwater and swim. The Azarketi must return to and submerge themselves in water, and if you don't do that in a couple days, you die. Essentially, they're humans with skin ranging in tones from white to pinkish, greenish, or brown. Generally speaking, hairless, though fins and scales and ridges and things are common. Webbed hands, webbed feet, gills again on their necks, and those pretty purple Azlanti eyes. Present day, no longer bound to their veiled masters, they function as their own true race. A true race we never covered in 1E. This is one of the few I never circled back to. But before we get down to their mechanics and things, one thing I want to point out, it's been eating at me for a while, probably going to make a full video out of this, I just don't have the spoons this week. But the Azarketi were not always called the Azarketi. They were called the Gilman in Pathfinder 1. They've been called Low Azlanti in other books coming up before this, yet when they receive an official printing in 2nd edition, they switch over to their racial name in the big brackets up top of Azarketi, literally even going so far as to say that that name literally translates to people of the seas. That was not something I expected to see in 2nd edition, given that the catfolk, fetchling, lizard folk, rat folk, strix, or Amurin, Kayal, Iruxi, Isoki, Itarii all retain their old name and are like called by their people, by their people's names. It feels disingenuous and against the brand for Paizo 2, given that like the Shuni are never called dog folk, right? And yet here we are. In any case, mechanically, an Azarketi PC has 8 hit points, is a medium creature with a speed of 20 feet, but a swim of 30 feet. They get ability boosts to Con and Cha with 1 freebie and a full lot of wisdom. They begin play speaking Common, Algothu, and of course, additional languages if possible. They get low light vision and have that big ol' hydration drawback. An Azarketi is capable of breathing on land as well as in the water, but their body requires them return to an aquatic environment at least once in a 24-hour period. They must submerge in this water in order to rehydrate their water-acclimated skin. Should they fail to do so, their skin begins to crack, their gills become painful. After the first 24 hours outside, it's a -1 status penalty to fort saves. After 48 hours, you begin to suffocate until you get put in the water. You have a 2-day timer, which in some games can be a pretty big death sentence. Though, I said it before and I'll say it again, most humanoid settlements have to be built along the water. Well, with the we need to drink that to function. So the average Azarketi adventurer can probably find something to make do. For those heritage for which there are so many, not only were these printed in the Ancestry guide, but getting an additional web supplement means there's just a boatload of content. Anyway, only thing to do is to get to it. The ancient scale Azlanti gains dark vision, and has a body dotted with phosphorescent spots that emit a guiding light, which helps them communicate. It also illuminates a 10-foot radius around them with dim light, and isn't terrifying at all. The benthic Azarketi gains resistance to cold equal to half their level, and you don't treat environmental cold as 1 degree more severe when you are wet. That is a confusingly worded statement. Cold water, fine, basically. They also adapt to pressure changes from being deep underwater automatically without ill effect. Know the bends here. The inured Azarketi gains poison resistance equal to half their level and can survive outside of water for 72 hours before suffocating. Mist breath Azarketi no longer need to be immersed in water and can instead mist or wipe themselves. Their land speed goes up to 25, but their swim speed is cut harshly down to 15. The Murk-eyed Azarketi needs only a DC 3 flat check when targeting concealed creatures or DC 9 when targeting hidden. The River Azarketi gets a crit success when they roll an athletics check to swim and get a success. The Spined Boys have a spined ranged unarmed attack that deals 1d4 poison damage, has a range increment of 10 feet, and is in the dart weapon group. Tactile Azarketi gain imprecise wave sense with a range of 30 feet, allowing them to sense motion in the water around them, and +1 circumstance to survival checks to sense direction, and also a really good detection ability. That's dope. And the Thalassic Azarketi gains Underwater Marauder as a skill feat, and piercing range attacks don't have their ranged increments halved when fighting underwater targets. So if you really, really just want to be an underwater archer, there you have it. Feats! Here we go. There's a lot of these too. 11 level 1 Ancestry feats. That's so many. Algothu Bond gives you a +2 circumstance bonus to will saves against mental effects that would make you controlled. And if you roll a success, you get a crit success instead, but it's a -2 if the GM starts throwing aboleths and veiled masters and things at you. But I'm sure you'll never run into any of those, right? It'll be fine. Ancestral Insight gets you trained in both Algothu and Aslanti lore. Should you roll a critical failure on an Algothu or Aslanti lore check to recall knowledge, you only get a failure. Interesting to see one of these come down as double lore, as opposed to Azarketi lore, which gets you trained in athletics and nature, as well as Azarketi lore, unless something else would have happened at the beginning and then you'd got a different one for free, of course. Our standard issue for the Ancestry weapon familiarity trait gets us trained with crossbows, hand crossbows, long spears, spears, and tridents, and access to all uncommon Azarketi weapon. At present, those being the boarding axe and the gill hook, a 1d6 agile, versatile piercing weapon, which allows you to still climb when you have it wielded in the case of the axe, and a two-handed grappling spear in the case of the gill hook. Cynical gives you a +1 circumstance to perception DC against lies and impersonations, you know, because of your tragic backstory, which is fair because your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was experimented on by evil fish monsters. Hydraulic deflection for 1 action. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to AC till the start of your next turn, making a sweet water shield. If only you could like pseudo block with it, that'd be tight. Perhaps later on. Pelagic Aptitude gets you trained in survival when you're in an aquatic environment. If you roll a crit fail on a survival skill check to sense direction or subsist, you only get a failure, so you don't get your landlubber friends lost in like a place where they'll drown and be eaten by sharks and things. Seems good. Perfect Dive. For 1 action, you leap or otherwise fall into the water and take no fall damage regardless of that enormous fuck-off cliff you just decided to dive down for dramatic effect. Striking Retribution gives you a +2 circumstance bonus to damage with weapons and unarmed attacks against creatures from the Algothu family and those that serve them. In addition, if an Algothu successfully attacks you or one of your allies within 60 feet with an enchantment, your circumstance bonus goes up to +4, which is enormous in the system for a minute. Remember that part when I said we didn't want to fight the evil underwater fish monsters? Maybe we do. We're actually pretty good at it. Surface Skimmer. When you are submerged just below the water's surface, you have cover from attacks made by creatures out of the water. So not being a 5-foot square down, essentially. On to the 5th level feats. Aquatic Conversationalist lets you ask questions of, receive answers from, and use diplomacy with animals with the amphibious or aquatic traits, +1 circumstance to make an impression on them. Every aquatic game's best friend. I need to talk to the frog, or the fish, or the fish frog, I guess. There are literally plenty of fish in the sea to tell you where the boss monster ran to. Azarketi Weapon Aptitude gives you the crit specialization effect of the weapons that you got before. Drag down for 2 actions while swimming in water at least 10 feet deep. You grab an adjacent creature on nearby land or in the water and pull it below the surface. Attempt an athletics check to grapple. On a success, if the creature is on land, in addition to the normal effects of grapple, you pull that creature into the water in a space adjacent to you. If the creature is already in the water, on a success, in addition to the normal effects of grapple, you go 2 squares deeper into the water. Moving a creature into water or deeper into the water is forced movement for the creature, but not for you. That's so good. Holy God. So that probably provoked a bunch from your fighter friends, but you're not getting provoked by his fighter friends, and you might have just caused someone to drown and die. Or at least be in a place where you're way better at fighting than they are. Water Conjuration lets you cast Create Water as a primal innate once per day, choosing to create fresh or salt water each time. And Marine Ally grants you a familiar. The type of creature is up to you, but one of its abilities must always be a swim speed or the amphibious familiar ability, and now you've got a best friend to go scouting in the water for you. Or like if you need to stay in the water and you needed a amphibious flying fish, I guess, that will probably stand out more than your average familiar, but you'll figure it out. Believe in the me that believes in you. Aboleth Transformation gives you a 3rd level Feats to Fins and 2nd level Water Breathing as arcane innate spells to help your friends swim with you, more or less. Certainly you won't use that to create a servitor race, right? Guys, right? Azarketi Purification lets you cast Purify Food and Drink as a primal innate, but only on liquids. You can cast the spell once every 10 minutes. You can also use your innate Purify Food and Drink on a touched creature instead of a liquid to purify their blood, giving them a +2 status bonus for a minute against ongoing poisons. Wow. All those people that have asked, can I create water inside the body? Well, no, you still can't, but this is like a step towards that. Replenishing Hydration. If you submerge in water and rest for 10 minutes, you get HP equal to your con times half your level. Not as good as some of the other, like, Ancestry feats that can do these sorts of things. But I mean, if you've got the water, there it is. Give him an hour, he's ready to go murder in the name of his Veiled Masters. Terrifying. As a reaction, Riptide. If you took Drag Down and you are within 10 feet of water, at least 10 feet deep, with your speed sufficient enough to reach the water in one stride. If you successfully grapple a creature of the same size as you or smaller, you stride up to 10 feet into the water and drag the poor landlubber down with you. Water Dancer says, when in an aquatic or swamp environment, you ignore the effects of non-magical difficult terrain, and swimming up or down is no longer difficult terrain for you, which is as good as the terrain you're in, but you're probably in that terrain, so that's really helping you capitalize on that swim speed as you're swimming through the reeds of, like, the river Sphinx. And Water Strider for 2 actions. Stride up to your speed. During your movement, you can move across liquids that don't support your weight. If you end your movement on a surface that can't support you, you fall into the liquid at the end of your movement. Not as good for us as it is for, like, creatures that can't swim, but if you really need to not go underwater for some reason, then there it is. All the one-e ninjas are proud of you. Aquatic Adaptation, once per day. If you and up to 4 other creatures are in contact with a body of water deep enough for you to fully submerge, you can spend 10 minutes adapting the creatures to that specific body of water. This allows them to breathe normally while within that body of water and protects them from deep ocean pressure. This lasts until creatures are no longer in contact with that body of water or until you use this ability again. That's dumb. Holy crap. That's everyone's pirate adventure. Just let's tread water. Real quick, 10 minutes, quick ritual before we all go down and you all get the bends. Let me help you breathe under this. This is all of the humans and dwarves and things that just had to play that in the aquatic game. Whew, that is clutch. Aquatic Camouflage. While fully submerged in water, as long as an observer is at least 20 feet away, you don't need cover to hide or sneak. The real 1-2 punch there. Weapon Expertise. As you see it everywhere, when your proficiency goes up one way, it goes up for these as well. Hydraulic Maneuvers. For 1 action, you throw water at someone. If the next action you take is an athletics check to disarm, shove, or trip, that action has a range of 15 feet. You don't receive any item bonuses to that check or any circumstance bonuses related to your physical body, but crit fails become only failures. This is also a range disarm, shove, or trip. This is also, I'm too far away to push you off the cliff, but I'm gonna anyway. Whoop, water, and then they fall. Gross. If you took Water Strider, Mist Strider lets you walk on air at a max of 45-degree angle. Essentially, this is air walk, solidifying mists to make a cloud step. Gross. Rehydration. Once per day, you can spend 1 hour resting to rehydrate your gills and skin by drawing water from the moisture in the air. You can't do this in deserts and things, but you could probably do it in a lot of places. So, like, if late game you're going to the Plane of Fire, bad. But in late game, if you're going to, like, the center of a continent, cool. Then lastly, Underwater Volcano, letting you cast Volcanic Eruption as a 7th level primal innate once per day, except you can only do it on the floor of a body of water, and effects that normally happen to flying creatures happen to swimming creatures. Maybe good somewhere. Maybe. So yeah, this is a really stacked race that's obviously real good underwater. I like them. It's a nod to Galarian's past. It's too bad the Aslanti deities haven't been statted out yet, because they seem to be a shoo-in for these people. And also, straight up, by giving them an actual racial name, I'm so much more interested in them now. Literally, when I was looking at this race before in 1E, it was like, oh, what's this? Gillman, a race of humanoids with gills. Cool. Oh, that's a bad debuff, and that's as far as I got. I'm obviously an exception. I'm a huge slut for lore. We all know this. I don't know, it just feels like better storytelling to me to call the species by the name of the species. I've rambled about that enough, / I'll ramble about it in another video. What do y'all think? Are we playing them? Are we rolling them up? Throw it down in the comments, let me know. We'll be back at it for another episode of the Ancestry Anthology, probably next week, I feel like. Yeah, we'll see you next time.